Envision a wedding day. The blooms are flawless. The lighting is perfect. Like they are witnessing the opening scene of a fairy tale, the guests are grinning. The vows are delivered in a clear, practiced manner. At the appropriate times, everyone applauds. Everyone thinks that happily ever after is about to begin. But take a deeper look. Take a look at the person at the altar. The eyes behind their smile, not the smile itself. Because someone who is going to marry someone they don't really love experiences a particular kind of mental quiet. It is also not quiet. It is not serene. It is repression. It is the sound of a sobbing heart being subdued by a logical head. We grow up with a narrative. Marriage is the result of love. Happiness comes from marriage. And if you are fortunate, everything comes together. However, for millions of people, marriage has little to do with desire. It has to do with stability. It has to do with safety. It has to do with pressure. Time is of the essence. It is about picking the candidate who, on paper, makes the most sense. Because the dread of being alone weighs more than the fear of being unloved. This is where the tragedy lies. From the outside, it appears like you succeeded. You seem to have vanished from the inside out. So why do intelligent, self-aware individuals act in this way? Why do individuals commit their lives to someone who doesn't make them happy? And what happens to the human psyche when it is made to live a lie year after year, day after day? We are delving deeply into the psychology of a loveless marriage today. To comprehend the unseen forces that lead people to settle, not to pass judgment on anyone. And the ensuing silent emotional cost. Because being alone isn't always the most agonizing form of loneliness. It is feeling totally invisible when married. We must debunk one of the largest fallacies society has ever perpetuated in order to comprehend why someone might get married without love. The main motivation for marriage is that love. Marriage was not a romantic milestone in the past. It served as a contract, a survival tactic, a means of securing land, protection, prestige, and ancestry. As the first prerequisite, love is a contemporary luxury. As life grew longer, safer, and more autonomous, people began to expect it. Here is the reality, though. That old survival impulse is still deeply ingrained in the human neural system in 2026. Psychology identifies a number of strong factors that force individuals into unloving relationships. Anoptophobia, or the fear of remaining single, is among the most powerful. Even if you don't often hear that word, you've sensed its existence. Because a societal clock is constantly ticking away in the backdrop of our lives. You should be settled by 30. You should have children by the age of 35. You ought to have established a life by the age of 40 that demonstrates you weren't left behind. And when those deadlines draw near and the person doesn't show up, terror begins to alter your expectations. Your brain begins to minimize danger instead of optimizing for delight. At that point, the standards change. You begin searching for a candidate instead of your true match. Are they steady? Do they have loyalty? Are they doing a good job? Would my family be okay with it? Do we have the same vision for the future? The reasoning turns becomes a transactional one. They are safe, even though I don't love them. Furthermore, safety is a medicine for certain people, not merely a choice. Especially for those who experienced instability, emotional neglect, poverty, or upheaval as children. Romance ceases to feel necessary once you have spent enough time in survival mode. What you want is relief, not desire. A steady relationship feels more like a haven than a romantic tale. A stronghold against the world is uncertainty. Then there is another trap that appears to be healthy at first glance. The pitfall of value alignment. You come across someone who shares your beliefs on ambition, politics, family, money, and religion. You are a good team player. You make sense and don't fight much. The heart and mind begin to bargain. Look at how well we get along. Eventually, love will grow. However, it frequently just exists and doesn't grow. And that is where the internal struggle starts. The body retains the revenues even though the decision was rational. It appears to be mature from the exterior. It feels, on the inside, like the beginning of emotional exile. This is the portion that most people never discuss. Many people are shallow, desperate, or settling, which prevents them from getting married without love. They act in this way because their neurological system has been conditioned to mistake some emotions for love, sometimes even since childhood. In psychology, there is a term for such hidden engine. Attachment. The template your brain creates early in life about what love is like, how much it costs, how to maintain it, and what to anticipate when you do experience it is called attachment. As a result, many people don't select mates based on connection when they reach adulthood. They are selecting mates based on familiarity. Love is unsettling to someone with an anxious attachment type. There is a sense of uncertainty. As if you have to work for it. As if you have to pursue it. It can therefore feel like salvation when they find someone steady, dependable, and accessible. Not ardor. Redemption. They don't ask if I want them. They want go, they are pondering. The trap is different for someone who has an avoidant attachment style. It seems suffocating to be truly intimate. It feels risky to be really noticed. Because it feels better to have a lukewarm relationship than to be deeply vulnerable, they unintentionally chose someone they don't love. They obtain intimacy without taking a chance on their emotions. And trauma comes next. Your brain may begin mislabeling signals if you were raised in an environment of turmoil, unpredictability, or emotional neglect. You might confuse chemistry with drama. You might confuse attraction with worry. Stability could be mistaken for boring. Thus, your mind says, this is good, when you find someone safe. However, your body says that this isn't love because it is wired for intensity. And at that point, people are unaware that their past is influencing a decision they will make for the rest of their lives. Because you don't always want love. Sometimes, when it eventually manifests in a healthy form, you are unaware of it. You decide what seems safe, controllable, and secure, and you call it love. Until marriage compels the truth to be revealed. Let us be terribly honest now. Because settling rarely seems like settling at first, this is one of the riskiest aspects of settling. It appears to be maturity. It appears that peace has finally been chosen. It appears to be responsible. It even appears to be love at times. So how can you tell if you are just accepting someone because they make you feel less afraid rather than creating a life with someone you truly want? Despite your mind's constant attempts to convince you otherwise, these 7 indicators indicate that you are settling. The first sign is that relief is more powerful than enthusiasm. They don't appeal to you. Being alone yourself makes you feel secure. The second sign is that your body stays away from them. Touch has an obligatory quality that you cannot describe. It feels like a show when you kiss. The third sign is that you feel lighter without them. Your neurological system is finally able to breathe, not because you despise them. You don't reveal your true self when you sign and converse with 4. Your deeper dreams, your strange jokes, and your worries remain inside of you. The fifth sign is that the future seems bleak. On paper, everything appears stable, but on an emotional level, it feels like a dark hallway. The sixth sign is that logistics are the foundation of your connection. Groceries, bills, schedules, and children. With the exception of the connection, everything functions. Sign number 7, you have fantasies of living a different life. Another version of you, but not necessarily a different person. The you who once again feels alive. And pay close attention, this is important. You don't have to be ungrateful if you recognize yourself in these indicators. You are not broken because of it. It does not imply that your partner is insufficient. It indicates that the truth is coming from your inner world. Because compatibility is only one aspect of love. Love is, additionally, the initial psychological struggle for someone who marries without love is not with their spouse. They do it with their own thoughts. This is known by a word in psychology: cognitive dissonance. The mental suffering that results from having to simultaneously hold two opposing truths. Truth A: I swear to always love this individual. Truth B: when they touch me, I don't feel anything. There is strain because of the conflict. And the brain begins erecting defenses in an attempt to lessen discomfort. You make excuses. You tell yourself that having passion is immature. In any case, that chemistry dissipates. Duty is that true love. That this is the appearance of adulthood. And the story works for a while. However, the body doesn't accept your narrative. The quiet reappears in many ways. Chest constriction. Annoyance about nothing. Numbing of emotion. A persistent, inexplicable low-grade sadness. The deeper cost follows. Loneliness within a marriage. The majority of people believe that being alone causes loneliness. The most excruciating form of loneliness, however, is when you are close to someone yet still cannot really connect with them. This is the loneliness of the private self. You start severing parts of yourself when you are unable to express your true feelings, your deeper anxieties, your fun side, or your vulnerability because something in the relationship feels hollow. You get smaller, little by little. Discussions turn into transactions. Have you settled the bills? What will you have for supper? Who is going to pick up the children? Not antagonistic. Not very dramatic. Simply hollow. And that is how a marriage might appear flawless on the outside while one person gradually fades away on the inside. And this is what the majority of people fail to comprehend. If your neurological system doesn't feel secure in a marriage, you can't reason your way out of it. Because your body perceives the connection as emotional deprivation even if your spouse is devoted, nice, and has done nothing wrong. Stress also results from emotional depletion. Not a lot of tension. Not yelling altercations. Calm tension. The endless sort. Your neurological system adjusts to prolonged discomfort in the same manner it always does when you live year after year without a true connection. It either remains active or turns off. Some people develop persistent anxiety. Agitated. Extremely sensitive to minor details. They take naps. Their hunger fluctuates. They can't stop thinking. Some folks go inside. They don't experience enough sadness to label it as depression. However, they also don't feel alive. Functional depression is what this is. You continue to work, show up, and smile in public. In private, though, you are worn out for no apparent reason. You become disinterested. You become less colorful. The most terrifying aspect then occurs. You lose faith in your own emotional cues. Perhaps this is just adulthood, you begin to think. However, this is not adulthood. Your body is keeping track of a love you never experienced. Your brain doesn't simply tolerate the emptiness when a fundamental human need, particularly the urge to be emotionally seen, is not satisfied. It looks for an alternative. Because signing a marriage license doesn't make the need for connection go away. Thus, there are three typical methods that people deal. First, apathy. The least difficult route is this one. You reduce your expectations to nothing. You give up on romance. You give up battling for closeness. You make your marriage into a roommate arrangement where you share responsibilities and bills. Everything appears serene from the outside. You are living in emotional grayscale on the inside. The second is displacement. You pour your life power elsewhere if you are unable to find love within your marriage. Because achievement at least gives you a sense of worth, work becomes an addiction. Or your kids take center stage in your emotional life. In addition to becoming the ideal parent for them, you also become the ideal parent because you secretly want someone to need you. Thirdly, looking. The most misinterpreted one is this one. People believe it has to do with selfishness. It usually has to do with starvation. The imaginary life then starts. Social networking old flames. What if romance novels are absorbed like oxygen, thoughts occur at night, and one sincere chat with coworkers feels like water in a desert? Additionally, the replacements can occasionally get darker. Porn, drink, shopping, gambling, everything that provides transitory sensation. Not all of them are evil individuals. They are frequently emotionally undernourished individuals who are attempting to feel alive without going overboard. So why don't they simply go away? It appears straightforward from the outside. Walk away if you are not happy. However, leaving a loveless marriage is more than just a choice from a psychological standpoint. It is an identity collapse. Because your brain begins to perform a cruel trick known as the sunk cost fallacy once you have invested years, money, family approval, mutual friends, and possibly even children. I have already invested a great deal on this. I can't let it go to waste. Admitting the reality becomes more difficult the longer you stay. Shame follows. Not the dramatic type. Shame that is silent and destructive. The guilt of not being thankful. The humiliation of breaching a pledge. The humiliation of not being able to make it work. However, this sentence is the largest chain of all. For the kids, I am staying. Indeed, steadiness is important at times. However, this is what many are unwilling to deal with. Youngsters pick up knowledge from more than simply what you say. They pick up on the dynamics of your relationship. They absorb the emotional coldness of a home. They make it seem natural. They are raised to believe that love is something you endure rather than something you truly experience. Additionally, in certain households, the child takes on the role of emotional stand-in, being compelled to provide solace, purpose, and even companionship. We refer to that as parentification. On paper, the marriage remains intact, but the emotional toll is inherited. Every unhappy marriage eventually comes to a fork in the road. Contrary to popular belief, there are more than two possible outcomes. 3 are present. The first result. Marriage that is companionate. This is the road of peace or match. Acknowledging the absence of flames, both partners construct an alternative. Friendship, cooperation, routine, and common objectives. It can be stable, but it is not a film. Even reassuring. It is sufficient for some. The second outcome. Hell is silent. At this point, bitterness turns into disdain. Anger is sparked by the tiniest things, such as breathing, chewing, and simply existing. Safety turns into a jail sentence. The house turns emotionally poisonous. And eventually, the strain begins to shatter the mind. Result 3. Parallel lives. The quietest tragedy is this one. No major arguments, no divorce. Just two strangers sharing a home. Under one roof, two different worlds. Here is the warning indication. Outcome 2 is not far behind when respect is lost. Because a marriage can endure without passion, but it cannot endure without respect. If you see yourself in this, what should you do? There are only two genuine routes, and both call for bravery. Road map. Remain and rebuild. Love can occasionally be relearned if there is safety, respect, and goodwill in the relationship. Begin with friendship. Have blame-free truth talks every week. Before anticipating desire, re-establish emotional closeness. And if you can, seek expert assistance. Fixing a villain is not the goal of couples therapy. Rebuilding connections is the goal. Roadmap B, depart with honor. Don't just run away if the marriage has devolved into disdain, numbness, or emotional damage. Get ready. Develop a stable financial situation. Establish limits. Make a plan for co-parenting.